Hello, everyone. Welcome to Zyirn Research Consultancy Podcast, your go-to source for insightful discussions on preclinical research topics. I'm your host, Nimisha Sharma, and in today's episode, we are going to cover specific questions on animal research facility design, with a special focus on the key considerations for designing animal research facility centers in India. We have with us Dr. Imran Khan. Dr. Imran Khan is a veterinarian with masters in veterinary pharmacology and toxicology. He has developed the niche expertise of establishing and profitably and successfully running the GLP compliant NABL and ISO accredited labs and CROs using his experience gained through more than 2 decades of research experience with national and multinational CROs, pharmaceuticals, and agrochemical companies. He has successfully established and supervised animal research facility labs in research years and has actively been providing advisory consulting for animal research facility design to many of our clients from pharma and academic sector. Please, Dr. Imran
Thank you,
Khan.
Nimish. Thank you very much for the kind and elaborate introduction. I'm excited to share my experiences and insight on this in-demand topic. Most of the labs are going for these new animal facilities, and will shed light on open queries received from our past and present clients regarding the animal facility design and how to construct the animals. Thank you very much.
Yes, I agree. That is the reason we are conducting podcasts to help our clients get expert insight on designing animal research facilities in their organization. And let's dive right in. Could you please share your insights on the requirements of the physical design of animal research facilities?
Yeah, of course, yes, of course. But important thing to know before we get into these requirements and details of the research facility design. I would like to shed light on why considering these requirements right from the designing phase or from the beginning itself is very important. So, if we understand that, then we understand the importance of the designing a proper animal facility. So, first of all, this animal facility construction is a huge investment, which is planned for a very long term period, maybe 20 years or so. So, if it is not well designed and planned in the beginning, any modification or innovation change later on, it will be a structural change. Second point is any structural change or the design change at a later time, it would require additional costs, and this will also disturb the existing operations happening during that time, and that will be causing loss of revenue and money to the organization. The third point is even if no structural changes are required or no structural changes are made, continuing with the faulty design would incur additional operational costs and recurring expenses over a period of time. And this will be continued for the remaining life of the facility, and it will turn out to be a huge amount. So that's why a well designed and planned and properly maintained research facility is of utmost importance for economical operational efficiencies and also for maintaining the good care of research animals that we are working with. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Imran, for highlighting the importance of these requirements. You have rightly touched on the importance of considering ease of operations and economics in the design of animal research facilities. There's optimizing efficiency, minimizing costs, ensuring compliance, and also promoting long-term sustainability. With the results being clearly defined, could you now share practical insight on the actual requirements of the physical design of animal research facilities?
Okay, so let me talk about some of the key requirements for the physical design of the laboratory animal research facility. So the important points are like the first one, if you consider, is the location and the geographical surrounding. This is one of the least considered criteria in the sense that not many people give proper importance to this point about selecting the proper location and the geographical surrounding for selection of the construction of the animal facilities. In addition to selection of location, other factors such as the daylight, what is the day length of in particular region, what is the daylight, the flow of the natural air in that particular geographical region, These things should be taken into consideration during designing animal facilities. The second point is the space planning. So we need to understand that in any well-designed and self-contained research facility, a maximum of 60% of the area can actually be used for the animal rooms, like the area which will be occupied by the animal rooms. And this 60% space allotment is for the bigger facilities, huge facilities. If you talk about the smaller and research facilities, it could be as low as 40%. Like only 40% of the area will be occupied by the animal rooms. 60% will be occupied by the other areas which we call as the utilities. So the examples of the utilities are the storages area, for example, storage for feed and storage for bedding material and chemical store and all those things. Similarly, the washing areas, the clean corridor, the dirty corridors, or the service corridors, we call it. So these make up the utility areas. So a maximum of 60% or say like 40 to 60% of the area can be used for the animal room space. Remaining area goes into the utility. So that is important to consider at the time of designing the facility.
Mhm.
Then the third point, if we talk about, is the animal housing. So different species, rodents, non-rodents, small lab animals, large lab animals, they have specific requirements for their housing. So today in this podcast, we will discuss mostly about the small lab animals. So when we talk about the small lab animals, these are like rodents, like rats and mice, different species of rats and mice, guinea pigs, rabbits, etc., which are housed into the enclosed environment, into the animal rooms, all through their life. They are never into open anytime. A requirement for the larger lab animals. So large lab animals, we consider dogs and goats, etc. So their requirements are different than the rodents. So we will discuss it in some other podcast. But today we will concentrate more onto the requirement of the smaller lab animals. The fourth point, after the location and animal housing, and the second point was about the space planning. The fourth point is the barrier system and the biosecurity measures. Uh, when we are working with the laboratory animal for research purpose or for whatever purpose, uh, it is important to control any cross contamination or the contamination of different infectious agents. So considering the entry exit points, the quarantine area, the isolation area for the sick animals, treatment of the sick animals, the personal material and the animal movements, decontamination procedures like autoclaving or uh, using other chemical decontamination methods. So these things has to be taken into account, because without these being properly considered, the facility would not be working properly in terms of contaminating the like preventing the contamination between the species or between the animals. The fifth point is the environmental control, which is one of the most important point. When we talk about the environmental controls, we talk about the HVAC systems, that is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system. HVAC system will take care of the temperature in the facility, the humidity, the air changes, and also the particular size, particle particle size. Like that will prevent any particles or bacteria or viruses entering into the facility through the filters that we use. The other important things in the environmental controls are the light and the sound controls. So we'll talk about the details in the subsequent questions. The next point, maybe the sixth one, is the sanitation and the waste management. In
Mhm.
any of these research facilities, we generate a lot of uh, biohazardous waste or the hazardous waste, which is mostly of the chemical nature. Biohazardous waste, which is of the biological nature coming from the lab animals directly. So cleaning and disinfecting the animal housing areas, cleaning and disinfecting the different equipments that we are using during this usage of these animals, and management of the waste, whether it's a hazardous waste or the biohazardous waste, is very important. Proper disposal of the biological material and the hazardous waste is critical to prevent contamination and also to ensure the safety of both the humans who are working, also the experimental animals that which with which we are working. So sanitation and waste management is a important criteria. Emergency preparedness, like what is your fire alarm systems or the fire separation systems? What is the backup system available if there is a power failure? How your HVAC system will work in case of the power failure? In case of emergencies, how are you going to take care? So those things should be in place and should be considered during the design of the research animal facility.
Mhm.
We also have to look into the regulatory compliance part of it. Uh, regulatory means like we have to adhere to all the statutory requirements, whether these are the local requirements, the national requirements, or the international requirements. Particularly the requirements governing the animal research facilities. Like in India, we have to adhere to all the CCSA norms. This also includes obtaining necessary permits for different things like water, getting the permit for water supply or getting the legal water supply, getting the legal electricity supply, having the waste management systems, like having the agreement with the third party biomedical waste disposal agencies who are approved by the government of the particular state in which we are having these research facilities. So these things are important. So adhering to these ethical guidelines for the animal usage also is important. So we have to consider all those because regulatories or the regulatory agencies or the government agencies will keep inspecting these facilities from time to time. So without complying to these, we will not be able to run the facility. Other than these, there are other factors like accessibility and ergonomics. How easy it is for the staff to enter or exit the facility or to access the facility. Or if it is on like say, facility is in a multi-story building. So whether the animal facility is on the ground floor or on the upper floors, depending upon that, your accessibility will be different. So you have to adjust to that. Security
Right.
measure in terms of unauthorized entry of personnels, or even sometimes there is the entry of some wild animals or the wild rodents, fire security and all those things. So that has to be considered at the designing stage itself.
Right.
Integration of technology. So this is important. This is costly. Most of the big companies are going for it now. For example, the building monitoring system for temperature, humidity, air changes, and all those things. Fire alarm, and the fire suppressing systems. Auto sensors for temperature for critical equipments, or even in the critical areas. So you can have the temperature sensors there and monitor it from your computer systems or from your mobile or even from the remote location, wherever you are within the city or out of the city also. And last but not the least, flexibility and the scalability. So we discussed in the beginning that constructing the animal research facility is a costly business.
Mhm.
It needs a huge amount. So you have to consider your possibilities of your future expansion plans. If you would be going for the expansion of the facility, or you may be going for the change of animal species on which you are working. So those things has to be considered so that there is a scope for the scalability and also for adjustment between the different species. So these are some of the important points which we have to consider while we design the research animal facilities. So that will particularly help us in high quality research so that we can concentrate on our research work and also prioritizing the animal welfare of the
Right.
research.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. So, Imran, you mentioned about selecting the right location for the construction of the facility. Otherwise, the cost of operations may increase, which is quite persistent.
Yes.
So, could you please elaborate it for the sake of our audience, like, a little bit on how this matters in Indian
Yeah,
scenario? Yeah.
sure, Nimisha, sure. So, see, like, there are many things that I can talk about here. Just for an example, India is a tropical climate, which is very hot, particularly during the summers. The maximum recurring expenses, or the biggest recurring expenses, or the operational cost for any animal research facility is maintenance of the temperature and humidity. Uh, like we have to maintain the whole HVAC system to maintain the temperature and humidity. So that's the biggest operational cost for any facility. So when designing the facility, selecting the location, if you have the facility running, say like north, south, or lengthwise, the whole facility would be exposed to the direct sunlight during the morning hours, during the rising sun, as well as during the afternoon or during the setting time. So the whole facility will be exposed to the direct sun. This will increase the heating. This will heat the facility from the exteriors, and there will be excess energy consumption for maintaining the temperature within the facility. So on the other hand, if the facility is running say like east-west, that is the lengthwise from east to west, So, because of the lesser exposure, only a part of the facility will be exposed to the direct sunlight in the morning and in the evening. So, because of the lesser exposure to the direct sunlight, the energy consumption will be lesser. So, so when we say less or more, even if you say like even if you consider a meager 5% less energy consumption on a daily basis, it will run into lakhs and even crores over the life of the facility. So that's an important point to consider: the location of the facility and the direction of the facility. Similarly, if the research facility is situated in a multi-floor building, uh, it is advisable that you have the animal facility on the ground floor to the extent possible. So even if it is on the higher floor for whatever reasons, try to have the facility on the same floor. Like it should be a self-contained facility where everything with respect to that facility is there on the same floor. So this will save you the operational cost. So if the facility is spread across multiple floors, for example, some storage area like feed and bedding material is stored on the different floor, or the autoclave is on the different floor. So you have to shift the material, or you have to move the material from one floor to different floor, and this is the labor intensive work. So this will increase your cost. So that will be the additional cost for the whole life of the facility. So that's why I said selecting the proper location and where your facility will be and how the direction of the facility will be is very important. If you can take care of it in the beginning, that's well and good.
Right. Thanks for this valuable insight, Imran. And you also mentioned about animal housing and husbandry. Do you suggest to have uniform room sizes across the facility or different room sizes, different size rooms? And if so, and if that is the case, then why so? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a good question. So if you ask my personal opinion, based on my all the this experience of 20 plus years, I would strongly suggest to have different size animal rooms in the facility. So in the smaller facilities, you don't have many rooms. You have very few number of the rooms, but at least you should try to have rooms of at least two sizes, maybe small rooms and the bigger rooms. In the larger facilities or very large facilities for the bigger organizations, there could be animal rooms of 3 to 4 different sizes. Okay, depending on the number of animals to be kept and the purpose of the room. For example, quarantine room and the procedure rooms could be small. So uh, where the like in the research animal facility where the experiment that are conducted on the animals don't need much of the surgical procedures. A small size animal procedure room should be fine.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, if you consider an animal facility where there is a frequent surgical interventions, recovery surgeries are happening for most of the studies of the experiments, and the number of experiments are large, maybe a large institute, education institute, or a big organization, a small procedure room would not help. There you should have a big size, proper size procedure rooms with all the facilities. So yes, having those things, separate quarantine rooms, separate procedure rooms, and different size of animal rooms. This is bit costly. Like it will have an extra cost at the time of the construction of the facility. But over a period of time, this will reduce the operational cost, particularly of the energy consumption, which is the maximum recurring expenses. You would not be cooling the unnecessarily large animal rooms if the same number of animals can be maintained in the smaller animal room. And also from the husbandry point of view, as you asked, you might have to use the same room for different species, like uh, same room for mice and rats, or maybe after some time you want to use it for guinea pigs and rabbits. So if you
Mhm.
have different size animal rooms, you have that feasibility to change these rooms for different species whenever required.
Right.
So my personal suggestion would always be to have different sizes of animal rooms.
Right. That's great to know, Imran. What is your advice on the entry exit points for the movement of research personnel, staff, materials, and animals? And you also mentioned about biosecurity and decontamination earlier. So, would you suggest a single entry exit point, or to control the biosecurity, or multiple entry exit points, and why?
Uh, Good point, Nimisha. So my advice would be there should be a separate entry and exit for people who are working in there, like the staff. separate entry exit for the materials that we are using in the facility, feed and bedding material and other consumables and all those things. As well as the animals, we might procure the animals from outside or we might send the animals outside. Okay, so there should be a separate entry and exit for personals, materials as well as animals. We may have it through the clean corridor and the service corridor systems. But it may not be possible for small research facilities to have different multiple entry exits for all, like personal material and the animals. There may be space constraint. At least there should be multiple exit points for the used material, which is the like probably the source of cross contamination. For example, if there is only one exit point for the used material from all the service corridors, say you have three service corridors and two clean corridors, and all the material from all the three service corridors is going out through one exit. It means the material is being traveling all through the service corridors before it gets exit, and the movement is into the larger areas. So chances of cross contamination is much more, and even the chances of noise pollution is more. You are dealing with the cages and the grills and water bottles and the trolleys and all those things. So that makes sound, that makes noise. So sound and noise pollution is one thing, and cross contamination is the another problem from that. As against to that, if there are multiple exit points, say like two or three exit points, so every service corridor has its own exit.
Mhm.
The used material can be taken out from the nearest exit point. So that will reduce the material movement and also the cross contamination. This will also reduce noise pollution because the movement is reduced, and this will also help you reduce the labor cost. So that's why having the multiple entry exit points for personal material and animals is important. So to the extent possible, should have the multiple points. Yeah.
Right, definitely. And all this needs a considerable amount of layout planning, as I understand from your talk, project management, and also documentation. Just merely by hiring an architect does not really help unless the animal research facility design is carried out under expert, supervision. I think for the biosecurity is also a very major concern in research facilities. And how can researchers and architects address this issue in their animal facility designs?
Absolutely. Like biosecurity is a major concern in the research facilities. And unfortunately, there are cases where the facilities have been closed or they have lost their accreditations because they were not able to maintain the biosecurity or proper waste disposal mechanisms in place. So biosecurity measures are essential, as we discussed, to prevent the spread of diseases and contaminants in the strictly regulated research animal environment. So we don't want the disease to spread from one room to another, or the infection from one area to another, or even to contaminate one area with the other, maybe with the chemicals or some infectious agent. So it is important to incorporate features such as the controlled access points, access points which have the air showers, or in the breeding facilities, it could even be the water shower. So you should have air shower or a water shower at the entries. Using the air filtration systems, we discussed about the HVAC system. So one of the important feature of the HVAC system is it has the HEPA filters. HEPA filter will prevent any type of contamination. Any particle size more than zero point 0.3 micron will not be able to enter into the facility. So that will take care of all the particles, all the bacteria and the viruses. And also having the waste management facilities to minimize the risk of infection within the facility. Additionally, designing the spaces that are dedicated to different activities like quarantining, isolation, treatment of sick animals, separation of the stock and experimental animals, separation of chemicals and the material stocks. So all those things is very important to consider when we design the facility for the biosecurity and preventing the cross contamination in the facilities. Uh, from the point of view of the bio waste or the hazardous waste, there has to be well designed and operational mechanism of how you collect the bio waste and how you collect the hazardous waste and store them for the time till the final disposal. So hazardous waste means we are talking about the chemical waste that is coming from the labs, and bio waste or biohazardous waste is the waste which is coming from the animal source, either the live animals or the dead animals. So generally the third party state government approved service providers are available for the final disposal of the bio waste or the hazardous waste. So depending upon the quantities, like how much quantity you generate of biomedical waste or the hazardous waste on a daily basis, the storage facilities and the facilities need to be created. For example, if you have the carcasses and you are disposing it say once in a week or twice in a week, you have to store the carcass. So you need a deep freezer for storing these carcasses. If you
Mhm.
are storing the hazardous waste, the chemical hazardous waste, you have to have a good quality containers which are properly sealed and packed to keep this hazardous waste so that it is safe till the time you dispose it off through the third party vendors. Uh, the final disposal of the bio waste and the hazardous waste is very costly, and hence the proper planning, meticulous planning is required for the cost effective processes when the facility is the operational. So those things need to be considered. The type of the material that we are generating, the waste material, how long we are going to storage it, and how we are going to dispose it of. Some larger facilities, they have the facility to dispose it off by themselves. Not 100%, maybe some percent, 30-40% of the waste they can dispose it off by themselves. Remaining they can give it off. So those things need to be considered at the time of designing the facility.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure we have covered some critical aspects of animal research facility design and operations that we have discussed here. Now, for the sake of our audiences and for our researchers, how can I would like to ask this question, like, how can researchers ensure the welfare of animals in an animal research facility, lab? Yeah.
Yes. Welfare of animals should be a top priority in any research animal facility, and also the safety of the human being. Welfare and safety of the research animals, as well as the safety of the human beings, the research scientists or the staff who are working in there. Architects can design these housing facilities that provide good ample space for the respective species that we want to house in the animal research facility. The natural lighting or the artificial lighting, depending upon the species that we want to keep. Environmental enrichment for the animals, the research animals that we work with, to promote their physical and psychological well-being of the animal. Those things need to be considered. Lighting and sound are the two important factors in the animal husbandry. We have seen to some extent and discussed about the temperature, humidity, and the air changes. The other two factors are the lighting and the sound. For example, excess light. This will cause the blindness in the albino animals. Most of the rodents that we use in the laboratory facilities, research facilities, they are the albino animals. So excess light will cause the blindness in these animals. And any sound above 60 decibels will disturb the animals, which may cause behavioral changes over a period of time. So their hearing capacity of the rodents, particularly, is very high as compared to the human beings. So the sound of 50, 60 decibel, which is very normal for us without disturbing, it could be disturbing for the animal. So anything above 60 decibel, like 70 decibel or 80 decibel, which we can manage very easily without any disturbance, could be a big disturbance for these no rodent rats and mice. So those things has to be controlled.
Right.
I'll give you an example of a sound control in the facility. So
Yeah.
when we talk about the sound control, we always try to control the external sound coming from outside and all those things. So that's good. That helps in controlling the sound pollution or the sound in the animal facility. But we miss one important point, and I have seen it in most of the facilities, working facilities or the operational facilities. The maximum sound disturbance is from the internal system itself. So you won't believe many times the HVAC system that we use for controlling temperature, humidity, and air changes. This itself is the main source of the sound disturbance. When constructing the animal facility, if you're not selecting proper thickness of the galvanized sheets for constructing these ducts for the HVAC system, or if you are not using proper insulation for these ductings, this will be a constant source of sound and disturbance within the facility.
Mm.
So, and it is very difficult to rectify this. Even if you want to rectify, it will be a big cost involved. hence considering these points at the time of designing the animal facility becomes very important. So you have to consider these points.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or advice for researchers deciding on developing or modifying animal research facility projects, particularly in reference to within India?
Uh, I'm not getting like what exactly you want me to cover here.
Any final thoughts or any advice for researchers that you would want to give those who are in the process of either developing or modifying animal research facilities labs?
Yeah, sure. So I would emphasize the importance of collaboration and interdisciplinary approaches at the time of designing the facility. I've seen this during these many years of my experience. Most of the time during the construction or designing of the facilities, the key stakeholders they are not like their points or the suggestions or their inputs are not taken into account. So this should not be the case. Researchers should work closely with the expert consultants or the veterinarians, animal house veterinarians within the organization, or the animal welfare teams, or the scientists who are working with these lab animals to ensure that the design of the facility and meets the need of both the research animals as well as the scientific community. Like the basic objective of the research facility should be considered by prioritizing the ethical considerations, environmental suitability, and animal welfare. Scientists can create the research facilities that advance the scientific knowledge with upholding the highest standards of care and the integrity. So this topic is huge. We have just seen maybe couple of or 3 or 4 examples. So if I keep talking about it, this would go endlessly. It's a long topic. But we have a detailed presentation on the research animal facility requirements and the design, especially on the designing aspect of requirements of the facility. The organizations which are interested in having this presentation, they can book this presentation for themselves, and we can have this presentation for them. Here we have discussed more about the small animals, rodents, rabbits, and guinea pigs. But depending upon the requirements, we can have the presentation modified for like large lab animals also, like dogs. Mini pigs is also available in India now. So somebody interested in having the mini pig facilities, we can modify these presentations for them, or give them the specific requirements for the mini pigs. Different farm animals like goats and cattle, and even ecotoxicological species like birds and fishes. So if anybody is interested, they can connect with us, and we can provide these presentations to them for different species of their interest.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Imran, for sharing, your expertise with us today. I'm sure we have covered a lot of kind of concerning questions and some important factors that need to be taken into consideration while designing or modifying animal research facility labs. And also, like, this is for our audiences and listeners. So if you have any specific and questions or queries while you are in your process of modifying or designing the animal research facility, uh, do discuss your queries with us. You can drop us a query at info@zyirn.com, and we will reply and connect with you. And our contact details are also shared in the description below and also on the concluding slide. So I would request our listeners to kind of, look out for more engaging podcasts on some diverse research topics from us. And thanks, Dr. Imran, once again for,
Thank you, Nimish. Thank you.
valuable insight, and it has been a great discussion with you.
Thank
Yeah.
you, listeners. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Yeah.